Cool. All right, I got the recording set up. Yeah, just to follow up on a few things from last week. I know we talked about the server boosting was one topic that came up. I did talk to Angela about it earlier this week, and which would be yesterday, and she mentioned that they are looking into it. I also boosted the token engineering server. If any of you have extra boosts, feel free to jump in there. I think we're almost to level 2, which should help with streaming quality and stuff. But yeah, Angela was saying that they're working on some new onboarding at the TE Academy that'll be more Discord focused, it sounds like. And so once they kick that off in the coming week or so, then they'll be looking more at the boosting the server. So should happen, but I think it's manageable for the time being. And then let's see, the other topic I guess would be someone from mentors joining the group, and I noticed Tyler isn't here this week. That's all right. I haven't actually had a chance to catch up with him, but Danilo is another community member, token engineering community member. He's a Block.Science engineer. He's also offered up some time to join the study group and help just with feedback and discussion, and is excited to see what everyone's working on. So he wasn't able to join in the end this week, but he should be here next week. So cool. And I see Tyler just jumped in too. Hey, Tyler.
Hey guys.
Cool. Yeah, I was just saying actually, I talked to Danilo about he had offered to jump in for the study group and help just with feedback and offer some guidance, but he's going to join next week instead. So, but nice, got a few more people jumping in. So yeah, I guess we can get started just going down the sign up sheet. I will just share my screen real quick so I know that everyone knows what I'm talking about, in case you haven't seen this yet. So you should be able to click on my screen in the Discord chat or in the voice channel here. But yeah, so this is a page within the one-stop shop. Showed it last week as well. This session signups page, and this I am thinking will be our source basically for setting up the agenda for the coming weeks. Each session just kind of entering information for yourself and your project if you'd like to reserve time. There's 3 sections here, one for pitching new learning goals, one for getting feedback, and one for presenting final deliverables once you've gotten more towards the end of the project. I guess at this point it doesn't really matter which one you sign up on, because I'd say we're more in this phase of pitching new learning goals, at least for myself. So once we get through a few of these, then we might move on to the feedback and support section. But yeah, we should be able to get through all of this, I think. So Nico-san had signed up first. I know he wanted to jump in. Let's see, I lost my feed here. Okay, I don't see him here. So who else is on this list? Dimondi. I think that was you, actually. Yeah, Dimondi, would you like to go first?
Yeah, that's me. I had to switch over to my phone because for some reason my internet isn't working. So if you want to just give me some time, if you want to pick somebody else, I just want to port everything over.
Yeah, cool, no worries. That works. So then, ZC Star, you are also signed up from last week. Would you like to give it a shot?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Awesome.
How should I go about this?
I think just...
Should I share screen or...
Yeah. if there's stuff to look at, feel free to share screen or
Yeah, there's a little bit of stuff to look at.
cool.
Not like crazy amounts, but enough to go about it, I think.
Nice.
Oh, shit. Which window? All right, I'm going to try and go live, see what happens. And we see session signups. And if I change, cool. All right, so let's see. Okay, and then I'll just dive into my learning journey here.
Nice.
Okay, so my name is Zane. I've been sort of thinking about ways to create sort of sustainable ecosystems for open source software. So I also run a project called Ships Gold. And over the past 2 weeks, I was doing my taxes in crypto, and I realized there was not any sort of tax software for ZK Sync, the sort of L2 network. So I wrote some tax software, and while I was writing it, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to be able to create incentives around like a 2-week sprint? And so this idea was, can we create something for that I'm calling a Pico DAO, a very short-lived DAO that has incentives for everyone to sort of review the impact that a person's made to this very narrow time window. So on sort of the website, I put together this README and the tax software itself and released this maybe last week. And I thought this would be a good sort of project to talk about incentives and sort of contributor rewards. But what if you kind of stopped looking at it from like, how do we reward people forever? How do we reward people and sort of measure impact within like a very short sprint? So let me see if I can't add this to the chat. Where are you, chat? Well, I'll add it to the chat. But also, if you just check out my learning journey, all of the resources are there. So basically, concept is a Pico DAO is a short-lived DAO that's focused on duration to achieve a short-term goal. DAO treasury is funded, and at the end of the sprint, the funds are split by the participants based on impact. And so how do these kind of rules work, and how does the flow work? Basically, the idea is that if you make a PR and the PR gets reviewed by DAO members, initially that set is just going to be the core contributor that created the repo. If it gets merged in, the PR is approved, and then you become a DAO member. Then that entitles you to being reviewed for how your impact was on that particular time frame. And so basically, as PRs come in to the repo, more and more members get added, and then more and more for each PR that you sort of receive, you receive a set of like sort of points for impact. And that's from sort of 1 to 10. So you do this sort of process of make a PR, get the PR reviewed. Once the PR is approved, it gets merged in. You become a DAO member if you aren't already, and then you just rinse and repeat. You do this until sort of the time frame elapses. So like if it's a 2-week sprint, the end of the 2-week sprint like happens. So when the deadline elapses, each DAO member votes on the impact of each merged PR to the project. So it's this idea that people are incentivized to sort of predict how much, what the median impact will be, what other people will say the impact of some code contribution. So if it's an update to the README, that's a spelling typo, that may have an impact of 1. If it's like a code rewrite that makes it 20% more efficient, that may have an impact of 10. And so basically, we tabulate each member's impact through simple like additive measures where it's the median of all of the reviews that you receive for each PR that you make. And so this adds up, and then the final weight is that this gets split for each of the individuals receiving the project. So Measuring impact is quite subjective. So the idea is to use power of crowds and an incentive to find a proxy for an accurate view. So if you predict accurately what someone else's score will be on the median, then you essentially get a point for that, depending on like how close you are towards the median. So if you're very far away, you may get nothing, and if you're very close, you get something. And so this is kind of like a weird point inflation for every like for every review that you predict accurately. So if you don't get that particular bump or you don't get any boosts, then that means that like you're not rewarded for saying that something has an impact of 10 when it really has an impact of 1. And so that's the general sort of vibe and the gist. There's some more details about the process and all those things. And so basically, the idea is like, how does this work in practice and things like that. So that's kind of an overview of the PicoDAO model that I was talking about. And so here's kind of where I'm thinking my learning journey will be. It's to develop a model for the PicoDAO, create shareable model and general template for applying these dynamics. So the idea is that once I create this framework, there's a lot of simulations that need to be done in terms of collusion. So let's say that you're in this dynamic group and you don't necessarily know everyone so deeply, but you may know some people very lightly. There are opportunities for people to sort of build cabals and try and nudge the median towards a number that like gets them more of the rewards for that 2-week period. The other thing I didn't talk about is that the prediction of the scores are actually blind. So no one knows what anyone else is predicting until the end, and which is revealed. So if, let's say, you colluded and did something dirty, everyone will know that you did something dirty, and chances are that maybe they won't partner with you, or maybe you'll get banned from the next round. So there's a huge, like, sort of building reputation that's kind of baked into this model. And so that's like sort of one of those things. And so where I think I'll start is just like defining a high level model of the system and breaking things down into components individually. And what I think the deliverable will be is like a Jupyter notebook based model with code and reproduction steps in a repo and components that can like sort of integrate different agent behaviors within like the model. So like you could say like I want to optimize for everyone that's like good, or I want 10% of the people to just like constantly predict something that's wildly out of the median for like a certain group of people. So you can simulate cabals and things like that. And so here I have a little bit of a flow chart going, which is kind of like the high level documents that we were talking about yesterday. So the one at the top is just kind of like a drill down. It's not so important. The one at the bottom is more important. So here we have contributors. There's the accept contribution process. Accepted contributions when they come through is kind of at this T-junction. And so if you get an accepted contribution, so basically contributors produce contributions which go to this accept or reject contribution process. And this process spits out accepted contributions and new reviewers. So if there's a new reviewer, it goes into the set of reviewers, and the set of reviewers can provide reviews for what becomes accepted. When the accepted contribution goes into this place called the impact rating process, and this is where the reviewers provide impact ratings. And then all of this goes into an output here, which is the reveal process. So duration time is like the 2-week sprint. So when the 2-week sprint signal comes in, it joins with the impact rating process. And then this allows you to then like sort of process all of the scores. So this kicks off the reveal, where then you calculate the medians, and then you see how close everybody is. And then you split any sort of funding that was up for stake according to the weights. and then you distribute the funds, or it can go into contestment, which is just basically there's not enough for sort of rough consensus that this was a fair distribution, and maybe someone wants to freeze the output. And that's more of a social thing that could happen. Okay, so I've rambled a lot. So are there any questions and thoughts and things like that? And I'm also not sure if this is like the process that we're going for, but I figured I'd just provide an overview of what I'm working on and allow people to just be like feedback, thoughts, etc. Or have I been muted?
No, I've heard you the whole time. I'll just quickly say this is a really cool idea. I like working in DAOs and a lot of like code-based contributions. So we use GitHub a lot. I'm always curious about how to like add a different incentive or like elevate the features of GitHub and incorporate it into some sort of like credibility or credit model once the sprint's over to kind of distribute rewards. So that's where my mind went, but I thought it was a really cool idea of what you have going on there. That was just my feedback.
Cool. Yeah, I had been sort of thinking about that too. And like, I think a lot of the places where I got hung up. So before I was kind of like tangentially on the outside, looking at the way like source cred works, etc. And so those are like really sort of looking towards like the long term of where something is. But I think there's a real impact if you can just like narrow your focus to like very short periods of time. And then the other thing was is that measuring code impact through automated means is always easy to miss things, but can we create incentives for people that get rewarded on this kind of 2-week basis to make accurate predictions? And so the idea behind like hiding the like sort of reviews until the end is that it allows people to like sort of vote in private, and like if there is like some sort of collusion, because like the final like voting sequence, the way that you rated like impact, it's not about quality. Because if it were about quality, then the PR would never get merged into the repo in the first place. So it's more about like how impactful this particular piece was. And so I think that there's like good incentives for people to like try and guess accurately, because if you guess accurately with your review, then you're gonna get a bonus, but you're not gonna miss out on a contribution to your score that everyone that guesses accurately gets. Yeah.
So I may have missed this, but was there a Pico DAO implementation in particular that you were hoping to, put out there in the world at some point after you've done a little bit of modeling and figured some stuff out? Is there like why the Pico DAO, I guess is my question. Is there you want to use this, I assume, for something?
Yeah, I want to use this. So I have started a project which I raised like some grant funding for, called Ship's Gold. And so that's more of a play on like how do you build long-term communities. But while I was like building this, I kind of came to the realization that like building long-term incentive structures is much more complicated and complex than focusing on the short term. So instead of building this like sort of long arching sort of thing, could I like condense things in the smaller fragments? So I would say that like the first model that I tried, which anyone here is like welcome to still apply for, which is I said I was going to put up 0.3 ETH. And so I have like 0.3 ETH on ZK Sync basically to say like, hey, look, let's just try this model by hand, which is just going to be like, hey, look, it's probably going to work out to be Google Forms. If you make PRs in this repo, I'll merge you in. Then that gives you access to being a part of this DAO, and then etc. So the long term is to just turn this into a small, like, I can generate this through like GitHub, either through actions or hooks, where you're able to create these like short-lived like structures with incentives. So I would say, yeah, the intent is to like implement it
Yeah, that's awesome.
and use it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Sweet. Yeah, from a modeling perspective too, I could see there being like really interesting experiments from a agent behavior perspective, like you were saying, to test for collusion, or I don't know, just different scenarios where like everyone either votes really high or really low for the contribution, or and just like kind of see, yeah, experimenting to see what the outcome is of like edge case behavior by participants. That could be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really interested in this, and like people that are interested in like jamming on this with me, I'm totally down.
Yeah. So do you think would you as like a next step, do you know what you are planning now that you have
Yeah,
some of this mapping done? Are there any other diagram tools that you might use, or diving into the code, or
yeah. So the next thing really, I think is to, so I already have like sort of the word description of like the way that the process actually works. But I think the next thing is to like see this impact rating process, is to like drill down into that, and then to show like sort of what the process update would be. And then I was thinking about doing the sort of differential spec. Uh, let's see, I think maybe I have, yeah, doing one of these uh, folks through this. So like probably trying to lay out maybe some state variables and policies, um, to try and figure out how I'm going to like take these kind of processes and put them in like sort of the right buckets at the right level of abstraction to be able to simulate new reviewers coming in, and like these new reviewers being parameterized as different agent behaviors potentially. So this here is probably got to be a stochastic process. Um, and I need to kind of figure out like what are the contributors. Should I then say like the contributor population are like honest, uh, fake, new user, and so like our new engineer or something like that. So it may be that they make lower impact, or they do a lot of low impact contributions and things like that. Um, or like some of the contributions often get rejected. There's another sort of like, I guess I need to like scale back into like the simplest thing. So probably the simplest thing is impact rating process. I need to just like describe exactly what goes on here and then process all scores. I need to describe exactly what goes on there. Yeah, probably those two descriptions or charts for that, and then from there build a very simple model and figure out what the edges of these components are.
mm-hmm.
That's probably where it's more fuzzy.
Yeah.
What should these inputs be, and what would be the extensible thing, or maybe not extensible in the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Nice.
Okay. So I don't want to take up all the time.
Yeah. No, that was
Yeah.
great. And I guess anybody else have a final comment or some feedback, like potential challenges you foresee, similar projects that you know about, might be helpful resources?
No, but in the, I mean, it got brought up, and I just want to like let people who aren't familiar with the project know about it, but it was mentioned a couple times, SourceCred, which is a really neat project that tries to keep track of contributions by the open source community so that they can be rewarded in some manner at some point. So if you haven't checked them out, make sure that you do. It would be nice to see other projects spring up that tackle that same sort of thing, because it's a very difficult thing to do, and there's a lot of areas that SourceCred sort of breaks or falls apart. But yeah, if you guys haven't heard of it, go check it out. It's a really cool project, and I think we'd probably see SourceCred like projects used all over the place if we could do it better.
Yeah. So about SourceCred, for those that you don't know, SourceCred actually wound down recently. So it still exists, but it's no longer. Yeah, it's no longer an organization. So it's now just an open source project.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of learnings there. Probably the most deep learning is the MakerDAO experiment. So what they found was the impact of SourceCred on MakerDAO, and I think they were pretty much the biggest users of SourceCred, I want to say.
Yeah. What was the outcome, or do you know? Do they view that as a positive thing overall, or did it end up being not worth it?
It ended up being unclear. If there was enough of an impact. Yeah, there's an awesome report about it
cool.
that
you should send that.
staff from the project did. Yeah. I'll see if I can track it down.
Cool.
But yeah, I'll drop it in the cadCAD study group just because it was such a good read. And so I stopped because I was jamming on a plugin extension to making plugins for SourceCred easier. But after reading that, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get what these issues are. Yeah.
Cool. Interesting. All right. Well, thanks for showing this off. We'll be on the lookout for updates, diving into the impact rating process, processing all scores. I think those are good next steps. Cool. All right.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Zane, right? Yeah.
Same.
Cool. Let me just check the list. Who was next? Demo, did you get set up yet on your computer?
Yeah, I'm all good. Is it possible if you could stream through your screen and I'll read from there? Because I'm doing it from my phone and I'm not really not really working here.
Yeah, totally. So you have
it's just it's the stock and flow, and I'll just explain the process of it all.
Cool. Yeah, let me just grab my screen. Okay. And so you have a learning journey document?
Yes, it should be where where everything else is at. Yep, there we go.
Cool. Nice. Yep. So I'm all set. Can you see it? Can you see my screen? I can zoom in wherever needed.
Okay. So my initial idea is, as a creator in the crypto economic space, I essentially am looking for a way to hold agents accountable within a particular system. And in that way, it's based on mental health and wellness. And in this case, our intention is to particularly have our agents build great habits, good habits at that. And the simple model of explanation comes in the form of writing prompts, motivational quotes, or anything of that sort. And within this approach, I have a couple of ideas that I'm interested to elaborate on, such as how do we spread ideas? And how do we build a sustainable ecosystem for a creator? And in this model, we're looking in the forms of using NFTs, but in the portion of kind of thinking of them in other directives and using the primitives that we have with bonding curves and all of the sorts. So my initial model takes after the augmented bonding curve where there's a reserve pool and there's a funding pool. But in this case, it's important to note that as a creator, there comes a certain amount of foot in the game. What's it called again? What's that saying that they
Skin
say?
in the game.
Foot in the game, like
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game, exactly. There's an amount of skin in the game that's necessary. So there's also, both parties understand that the person who's issuing these NFTs, that they're in fact in it and they're not just doing it for a money grab. So in this way, as you know, with the conventional bonding curve, augmented bonding curve, there's a open phase, there's a funding phase, and then there's actually the open phase. But in this model, what we would essentially have is a founder's phase where they're putting their money where their mouth is and initially putting up the money for the NFT to be collateralized. So say if I'm a creator, I have a collection and I'm looking to do something in the purposes of writing in that sense, just to make it easy. I have 500 writing prompts. I put $10,000 down. Each writing prompt should cost however much divided that is. And then whatever that case is, at this point, we understand that anything that's being issued, it has actual value because the value is locked within each particular NFT. So this is a way to signal to other people to note that, yeah, he's actually putting his money where his mouth is, and there's something to be shown. There's something to be said about what he's doing here as the first initial stage. And then in the portions of actually minting our process of it, the actual project token, it's known or is shown as a actual ticket. And we want to look at this as a way when you go to Chuck E. Cheese, you have to trade your money to get a particular token and to play in their game. And the project token, which is fungible tokens, are in fact the same way that we'll look at this, but they're minted and issued through a bonding curve. And of course, at this point, that's undetermined, but it's just a specification method of how I would intend for the ideas for the system to look. In this way, if there is a project token, project ticket, it'll be very much easy to determine the actual value of each NFT on top of the intrinsic value that's already locked in it. So as shown within this system, eventually all of what's decided to be bonded to mint will go into the reserve. And in purposes of burning to withdraw, and this is the act of taking your collateral back and then burning the actual project ticket. And in this case, as shown in the graph, there's two different directions as to where it can go, where it's the burn to mint and then the burn to withdraw. In the burn to withdraw function, whenever a project token are burned, in order to reclaim the collateral, an exit tax is enacted on liquidation. And as members liquidate their tokens, a small percentage is sent to the NFT pool. And what the NFT pool is essentially supposed to be looked at is as if it's a collection that a creator would decide to mint. And what's really unique about these is the NFTs are essentially Merkle trees where they can essentially be plucked and pulled at whatever time they're to be instantiated by. And the process of, as is shown from the burn to mint, this is what it essentially takes to instantiate the NFT that is being pulled from the creator's NFT pool, as shown that the creator would earn a commission from every plucked NFTs. On top of this, we also have to remember that there's already an intrinsic value on top of the NFTs, considering that there has been a collateral put in within the founding phase. And as I mentioned before, the objective is how do we spread ideas in the crypto native approach? And in this way, our approach is essentially to give away money in the benefits that eventually everything will come back to us, given that the incentives are aligned in the ecosystem are essentially to grow. The idea is not to give out money, but it's to understand that it will come back to you far more than it would. And that's to explain where I have it here where it says the stability fee. If you want to go down to to the right, to the stability fee. That's an also important method in terms of, as said, my idea is to build a digital health and wellness. So nothing could really, it won't really be helpful if one person is just hoarding these NFTs. Things that spread are that wins. So within the stability fee, what we're essentially looking to do as you're holding it, you'll be actively charged a tax, a fee, or whatever you want to consider it to be. And this could be, it would make sense for it to be at a very high percentage, considering that we want the turnover rate to be incredibly high, so more people will be able to essentially reap the benefits of the economy. And this is in the case that the writing prompts, whatever whatever the case can be, is something that is helpful. So if it is helpful, there should be a incentive to actually hold it, and in the ways of where we would want to increase the turnover rate. So imagine if we were looking at a system that the first NFT that is pulled from the root holds a 100% fee. And in order to reduce that, it needs to be sold to the next person. Whereas from then, you have two people, but now your fees will be down to 50, so on and so on. When it's sold to the next, it then reduces. So in the purpose of, as it's shown to support the economy, where the stability fee is effectively redirected back to the bond to mint curve function. And as you know, what determines the bond to curve price is the amount that's in the collateral. And considering that this part of the portion is effectively the protocol owned liquidity. So at a certain point, there is a certain amount that the price should never go under. And depending on the bond to curve, the way that the function is set, I had initial ideas of eventually that the price would eventually taper off. So now we can just look at the function as a automatic price, not an automatic price, but a price that it should not fall under, and it's just primarily stable as a function as a method for in times in the future for other people to come into it. Yeah. And of course, if you have any more questions, I'd be great to answer.
Yeah, this is cool. And I actually have
I'm sorry, I missed out another part where there is a portion of the rewards pool. It's also important to note that the underlying blockchain that I'm using is known as Stacks, and what they have is something that's really interesting. That when you stack your stacks, you return Bitcoin as a reward. So as said in the beginning, where as me as a founder, if I'm looking to put $10,000 into my own project to bootstart it, to give this to signal to other participants that, yeah, I'm really in it. I'm going to build a community for you, and effectively we will all win out, because not only am I building a career off of this or a lifestyle, but also you as the end participant can use it as a method of building accountability, writing every day, building great habits, being supported with a community that's doing such. And in the rewards pool, given that it's around 8 to 10% that you would earn in BTC on a year-to-year basis, so the rewards pool are to be directed to those who are completing their tasks, those who are consistently showing habits and whatnot. Yeah, and that's all I have to say. I mean, there is definitely a lot to say, that's good enough.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really interesting. One observation I think from my side is that it seems like there's a lot going on, and just from like a process or like next step perspective, I feel like there's still more to flesh out in like a lot of these individual components, like the bonding curve. There's the bonding curve, a lot of parameters that would come along with that. The stability fee is another feature. The rewards pool. So there's like a lot of core pieces to the overall infrastructure of this system. And yeah, I would just be interested to like see. I feel like there could be a lot more detail too in a lot of the parts of this stock and flow chart.
Yeah, indeed. It's only because like when I'm thinking, it's a lot easier for me to get the ideas out and then work backwards. Because I mean, even as I was doing this, I've noticed that this is definitely not going to work as intended. But it's a good way to process the bigger picture of how everything is intended to be. Because as you said, there's a bunch of tips. You could literally break it down as deep as it could go, and that's where it's like, I just need to make sure that I can get this idea out there, and then work and then work backwards.
You guys are killing it with the diagrams. Awesome.
Hey, I'll be honest. I learned this as I was going. Just went through over a lot of things. Like, it's a lot of fun. Just at least getting the ideas out there and just trying to work around it and understanding the importance of using these things within crypto and other things that has nothing to do with crypto I think it's really powerful. And the design itself, it's almost as if it's like we are artists in a way.
Yeah.
We think of a system and then we try to figure it out. I think that's one of the coolest things about it, and you could just continuously iterate upon it.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So there was like a couple like things I kind of missed. So basically, I think you're saying that when let's say an artist like has an idea for a project, they take some initial capital and then they put this into a like reserve pool to like jumpstart the bonding curve economy for minting, I guess, fungible tokens. Is that correct?
So where the beginning stages of it, where the bond to mint, that is the fungible tokens, but they're only looked at as tickets, and this is the right to instantiate to pluck from the Merkle tree and a tree pool. So it's almost to say that given that the amount of people who are interested in it, they would of course put their stacks, their collateral within it, and then they would retrieve this token. This token, literally, it's just if you put in the ideas of a Chuck E. Cheese token, and it's only to say that it is the right to then pick from the NF tree at whichever given time frame, whichever given price. The initial, what goes into the NFT pool is the actual product, and that's to say the NFTs that the artist, the creator who supports, to say that what I have now actually has value because I put value in it. So no one could tell me that, this doesn't have value when there's actually value there. So it's almost to say that it's just a method of signaling to show to other people that not only did this person put his money where his mouth is, because if he actually believes what he's doing, there's capital to back it up. So regardless of whatever it is, it's effectively, given that NFTs are practically anything in this world, you're effectively giving something value within this world backed by your collateral put in it. So regardless of however anyone thinks about it, there should be no rational reason as to why it should be sold. It should be valued less than what it is. Now, of course, the actual tickets itself, those are a method of determining, considering that there are a multitude of people within it. There could be a portion where people are deciding if they're interested in a auction on a day-to-day basis. Those who put it up, whoever puts up the highest price per it, can then own it. But then again, it gets deep in the weeds as to how that wants to go through. But yeah.
Okay, so basically the way it works is I'm an individual like audience member or a person that like may be a fan, and so like you as the artist have already put some collateral in this project, let's say $10,000 or whatever. I say, hey, look, I want to enter the lotto for being able to get one of your NFTs, which maybe gets me access to whatever kind of membership. We could call it like friends with benefits or any of those things. And so I say like, okay, here's like 20 stacks, and that gets me like whatever kind of price of tickets. So maybe I get 10 tickets or something like that. And then so I guess periodically there is like a lotto that says, or even continuously, there's a lotto that allows me to like potentially win or uh, put in an auction on an NFT that's going to be minted. And so the quantity of NFTs that are minted is determined by the artist in the beginning, or is it like infinite supply?
So that's also a good point to mention. But as said, like considering that all of the NFT that are being, they're within a they're looked at as on a Merkle tree in the sense that once they are, the NFTs are themselves can also be instantiations of that. Because as said, like the purposes of this is to spread ideas. The more people that has it, the better that it is. So of course it would make that there's so long as there is particular interest for that particular NFT, it could grow into infinitum. So the
Okay.
idea is like you have a set amount of NFTs, say like a hundred different writing prompts. But if one of them are very, very popular, then it's obviously that we would want this writing prompt to be spread out to everyone. So through that itself, there becomes more the actual popular writing prompt becomes a possible instantiation in of itself that can grow. And as known, the stability fee will also then be cut into half by the amount of time that it's to be grown. And it's intentional that this prompt itself is super. It works really well. It's really nice. It does a lot of it help my mental health, whatever the case may be. That I would want to spread it to somebody else. I would want to
Okay.
share it with somebody else.
And so there's incentive to spread it because the more that you spread it, that increases the value of the NFT.
It comes back to the fundamental basis that if it's a health and wellness, we want to make sure that what we're saying, what we're spreading, it's something that will help somebody. So that is the act of spreading it.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I would say like like I think yeah, like Peter. I can't remember. Is it Peter? I
Peter,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Peter's close enough.
I was pretty sure it's Peter. Like Peter was saying, like probably just like yeah, drilling down into like the mechanisms a little bit more, because I think like the supply dynamics are kind of
Hmm.
interesting, and then I think thinking about like the and holders' incentive to like sort of mint more supply or increase the supply, um, and like how like those holders like will get rewarded, and like what happens when you get to the edges of the supply, or like what constrains how many NFTs are like minted. Because like there are a lot of really cool processes like Nouns DAO, for instance, which
Hmm.
does the same sort of like daily auction process. So I could see like what you're doing here to be kind of cool like that. And then the other thing is that because the NFT supply seems to be potentially flexible, um, what it seems like it would work kind of like Nouns DAO in the sense that like Nouns DAO is like one a day, but instead maybe your supply like or your minting rate is a function of all the other sort of activity that's going on with the tickets, etc. So yeah, just that section alone seems like really interesting to look at.
But it's also important to note that, like as you were mentioning, it probably would be in the sense that on a day-to-day basis, you would have the possibility to mint one NFT. Given that if I have a collection of 100 prompts, whatever the case may be, that on a day-to-day basis, then it would be on a continuous, like you would then have the option to where to mint it. But I see exactly what you're saying. Thank you.
I had a quick question. Two things. One was, I was thinking a bit about Ocean Protocol, and I was wondering if you're also imagining like having a token for all of these NFTs that will sort of underlie the whole ecosystem, or if each one will be its own, unique token, and therefore the demand will be sort of set by that one token. And I was thinking why this is, because in your modeling, you might want to consider, making sure that you're incentivizing, you're not disincentivizing people from buying early because they want to wait for the fees to go down. You want to sort of map out the optimal continuous value that even as the fees are going down, that the value would be going commensurately up, and therefore the end price would be the same, so someone wouldn't feel that they paid the higher fee at the benefit of the later purchasers.
Yeah.
But it's something you could, I think, model in cadCAD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna definitely thank you for that.
Cool. Nice. So what do you think is your next step, would you say? Are you gonna, what are you thinking?
So I'm definitely gonna take some advice as to what you guys told me, but I think what the best things to do is probably start breaking it down to more smaller components, and then seeing it from that ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I know earlier you said you were really interested in sort of like the system as a whole and all of the various actors, and then you wanted to work backwards.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you that this is the right way to do it, but one thing that I've learned in all of my conversations over the last couple months with Zargam, is that he tends to start on the opposite side, where he'll take a system and describe it as simply as he possibly can. And then he'll add in complexity one step at a time. And there's a couple reasons to do that. One, it's easier to reason about things when you're not trying to like maintain a mental image with a bunch of different stuff all at once. But two, it allows you to create a model that doesn't include behavior, mechanics, or actors that aren't necessary for the model to actually function. So you end up with a more streamlined, focused model that gets right to the point and sort of leaves out all the extra noise.
Okay.
So, and like I said, I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but that's something that he has suggested to me multiple times. So
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't know any better, given that this is like my first go at it. So I'm in no position to be arguing about someone, especially with Michael. So I'm definitely will take that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Be like, thank you for that. I'll definitely be taking that.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say is, like, at least in my own experience, when I've put together some of these models, I like to think about the more complex take of the model, like the more complex version of it. Even if I don't actually end up modeling that, I think that's still useful because it sort of puts all of your pieces on the table so that you can sort of see everything that could be modeled or might make it into the model eventually. But what that helps me do is flesh out the questions that I actually need or want answers about. So sometimes I don't know what questions to ask because I find that I don't have a very good, firm understanding of, all of the pieces that are working together and the relationships between them. But once I kind of get it out, at least initially, that helps me start to ask questions. And then at that point, once I know the questions that I want answers to, I can go back and simplify it and then add in complexity like Z suggested. So.
Got it. All right, then. So cool. I guess my learning goal is to redefine my learning goals.
Yeah, over and over.
That's definitely very, very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially where this works, you got. I mean, it doesn't really show it. yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is great stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
You could definitely learn a lot about this system by modeling it in cadCAD. I think if you were, because it seems like there's a lot of like parameters to play around with, and different agents you could involve, and yeah, different scenarios. So cool, really interesting. All right, let's go back to the sign up sheet. Demo, C-star. All right. If Nico-san hasn't shown up yet, then we can go with Elbeth. Yeah, looks like Elbeth. Are you there? Do you want to jump in? Elbeth, can you hear us all right?
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if you could. I posted one page. I'm not sure if I'm able to access it now. I put it on the other one.
In the one-stop shop?
Yes,
Do you
down
have a
this
page?
one. Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, I'm just going to speak.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay,
I might
do
not
I
have
have to
access.
do that myself? Okay, let me see if I can share my screen from here.
Yep.
Oh.
I'll stop.
Sorry about that.
All good. And Demo, if you want to create a learning journey page for yourself too, and throw your stock and flow chart in there, that'd be a good place to work out of.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool.
Yes. Can you see my screen, please?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Got it.
Yep.
Or at least
Loading for
loading.
me.
Yeah.
Please, can you? I don't know.
I think it's
see?
still loading for me.
Okay. Yeah, let me just start speaking to it. Basically, I participated in T Academy. I think this year, was it this year? So I haven't really learned well the way I should or I had desired to. So I worked on some models, stock and flow diagrams with a team member. I was able to code one of the models using cadCAD 1.0 reference. I also attended the boot camp, but basically because I wanted to get a full grip of it to be able to use it in my I lecture to be able to use it with my students as well. So that's why I joined the cadCAD study group. So I'm taking it all over again, plus some other stock and flow models that we couldn't get done that time. So basically, that's what I have on that page. I'm going to work on it again because it's really taking time. I was supposed to share my GitHub account too because there are some of the codes that are not fixed yet. They had issues, but I was able to fix it that time. But presently, they are not working now. So that's what I have. I hope to update it properly. And if I need any assistance, I'll get across to it against next class. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So you were part of the reward systems program at the Academy, is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. So is the model, the stock and flow diagrams that you're working on, are they related to a reward system, or is it a different system? It's a reward system?
Reward.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, it's about reward and the treasury, looking at how to retain talent
Mhm.
and how not to deplete the treasury.
Ah, cool.
Even though contributors keep coming in into the system, we want to keep them and make sure that their mental health is kept while reward is done appropriately. But
Mhm.
at the same time, not depleting the treasury. So that's what it's all about. I'm going to work on it more,
Cool.
give it a lot of time against next class.
Okay. And I mean, I would love to see the diagrams. I'm not sure the screen's still loading for me, but if you think you're able to somehow copy it to the Notion, the one-stop shop Notion, then I might be able to see it and share my screen. I'm not sure if you're able to like copy it directly over though, because it looks like it's saved in your Notion, your own personal one at the
Okay.
moment.
Okay. I'll check it again and do
Okay.
accordingly.
Yeah, give it a try, and if you can get it into the shared Notion, then I can share my screen and we can take a look at it. Otherwise, maybe
Okay.
we can work on that afterwards too. Because, yeah, really curious to see what you kept working on from that research project.
All right.
Cool. All right, then while Elbeth is working on getting that set up, let me just go back to the signups list. Oh, actually, I think Diamandi was on there twice. So now Lemp.eth, you still around? Where did he go? Oh, he must have just dropped. Okay. All right. Well, he was working on evolutionary prisoner's dilemma as his learning goal. That sounds pretty interesting. Okay. Well, maybe we can catch up with him next week, or if he jumps back in. Did anyone else want to add their name on, append to the sign up list for this week? Otherwise, I might actually walk through what I had worked on. I didn't put my name in here since I went last week, but does anyone else?
I don't have anything for this week, but
Yeah.
I'll try and have something ready for next week so I can present
Cool.
on some models that I have in like my personal.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of modeling lately, but it's been for like demonstration purposes. I haven't done anything that was like super fun. So yeah, I'll try and have something ready for next week.
Cool. Sounds good. Anyone else? Quiet Catalyst. You were working on was it conviction voting or bonding curves?
Actually, my interest was in liquidity, and so that was related to bonding curves and liquidity pools. And yeah, I think at this point, I've been playing around with the cadCAD software and trying to get my head around some of the bonding curve algorithms.
Yeah, those can get complicated. Nice. So are you like working on the math then, more in the weeds on the math, or are you trying to like diagram any system out, or are you just kind of
A bit of both. So I've done some system diagramming and some simple bonding curves. I was doing some experimentation over the last week with a sigmoidal bonding curve, and what I'm working towards is sort of trying to get a deeper understanding of the trade-offs between, the basic sort of balancer curve versus sigmoidal,
Cool.
and you would use one versus another.
Yeah. And how do you think do you have specific questions about the trade-offs maybe, like which one incentivizes a certain type of behavior, or is better for a certain stage in a project's life, or yeah, any specific questions related to
So if we tie it back to liquidity, the bonding curve is going to have some impact on that. But then you also have the opportunity around establishing liquidity pools, doing things with token pairs, and maybe even more than pairs. And so I think I feel like I don't have an understanding of how to weigh the trade-offs between a bonding curve mechanism and liquidity pool structures. So trying to get a deeper understanding of how those things play together while spinning up on some of the math behind the bonding curves, working with the different cadCAD implementations between where 1.0 is and the, the 0.428 or whatever the most recent production version is.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. Do you think you'll have something that you want to share with this study group at some point, or are you just kind of poking around, see what's going on?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share when I have something that sort of holds together.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in exploration and learning mode at this point.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that's probably same for a lot of us on some projects. So we'd love to see what you have if you want to maybe jump in next week. And yeah, even if it doesn't seem like much, maybe people have other resources or connections they might be able to help out with to accelerate the process for you. So
sounds good.
But cool. Good to hear. All right. Then I can jump into some of what I worked on if nobody else wants to jump in. Let me try and pull it up. Okay. Actually, I haven't looked at this in a few days, so let me try and find the right spot. All right, so I think I just shared my screen. Yeah. Okay, so I was looking at the predator-prey model mentioned last week. I think my learning goal is to understand how to, I guess, describe the predator-prey model using cadCAD 1.0 concepts. So to the point where it's more or less ready to start coding with the reference implementation, but maybe not actually getting into the coding. So that's kind of my goal. And then I think I'll probably end up trying to build a model just using regular Python and doing it from scratch, just for the learning experience. But then, because cadCAD 1.0 is probably a little overkill for a simplified predator-prey model, but yeah. So this past week, I was actually working mostly out of this Lucid Chart. Let's see if I can pull that up. Oh, that's too bad. Okay, one sec. Just grabbing it on a different screen. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I started just messing around with a few different types of diagrams. I have my stock and flow diagrams here. I was doing, these are entity relationship diagrams. These are causal loop diagrams. And obviously, it's pretty simple. There's like one loop. I think I did that right, but yeah, either way, I was just kind of messing around with this. One interesting, my connection just cut out? No.
No, but if you're showing a diagram, I don't see it. I'm still back on the Notion.
Yep, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. I'll just do this screen. Okay, so I should be able to see that, and here. Okay, so yeah, on the Lucid Chart, was messing around with stock and flow diagrams, block diagrams, entity relationship, and causal loop diagrams here. So one thing, I guess, maybe Tyler, I'm kind of curious if I was thinking about from your what you were explaining last week about the closed loop systems, and I was thinking about how that could get implemented in a predator-prey example, because it's mostly just like predators eating the prey. At like the highly simplified version of it is just predator eating prey, prey feeds predator, and then yeah, that kind of just goes in a circle. But if there were a controller introduced to the system, then what would that be, and what impact would it have on the predator-prey dynamics? And I kind of came up with this, like, one example for a controller could be population capacity, and basically there's the predator-prey dynamics that happen, and then the output is some sort of, I guess, total population, which feeds into the capacity, which comes back to the, I don't know, I forget what this is called, and then, yeah.
Summing junctions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the controller is generally the very first block that occurs after the summing junction. That's where it takes the original signal combined with the error signal or the feedback signal, that comes in. The box that I usually put down here, and again, this is from a control systems perspective, but the box that's usually down at the bottom is the sensor. It's what is sort of observing this new state and then spitting out some new signal that can be fed into the summing junction, which combines the two signals. And then based on that new signal, that new cumulative signal, the controller acts differently. Yeah, so...
Okay,
and then,
something like that.
So it's usually three different things. The first box there, right after the summing junction, is your controller. Then you have your plant, and then you have your sensor down below. Yeah, that's your plant, and that's what actually does the thing, like that tries to produce the desired outcome. In this particular case, I don't know what your desired outcome is. I assume it's like an equilibrium, probably. Maybe not. Maybe you hate sheep, so you want to kill them.
It's actually wolves and rabbits. But...
Wolves and rabbits, all right. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I haven't ever really converted this one, but let's think about it for a second. So we have, I guess the controller would be, I guess the eating, right? It would be the consumption of resources.
Because there wouldn't be enough resources to consume if...
maybe that would be the plant, actually.
So in the plant example, this is the plant, the predator-prey dynamic. So this is the plant. And then the sensor is the water goal, or like the target for how much water should be in the system.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know how that would map. I don't know how that would map to it.
Well, it depends on the variables that you want to impact the outcome, right?
Yeah.
So inside of predator-prey dynamics, are you including food supply for prey?
Yeah, so I guess really what you would want to do is you would want to map out very specifically what it is that this predator prey. So just, you can more generalize it as predator eats prey. Yeah, okay, so we have a predator that eats the prey feeds.
Yeah, So this
Predator.
and so these are like the assumptions that I made. The predator eats the prey to survive, and they die if they don't. The prey will reproduce naturally at some rate. And I was holding off on other animals and age. So like I guess as predators or prey get old, they might die if they're not eaten. But yeah, so just like very simple.
Yeah.
I think, well, the thought experiment, with those assumptions, would the predators just grow
Mm-hmm.
to the limit of the prey?
Yes, unless there was a population capacity that's lower than that max population. But
So you have an external forcing function that if predators became too numerous, it would die or something.
Well, sort of. It's
It's
a symbiotic relationship, though. You have like the what controls that the population of the predator is how many prey there are.
mm-hmm.
Right. The more prey, the bigger that predator population can become. But it goes the other way too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the rate of predator consumption is faster than the rate of prey reproduction, then you'll have more predators.
Yeah. The rate is actually probably what's in question here.
Yeah.
To find that equilibrium, you'd have to, the rate at which the new offspring is created in both parties,
Mm-hmm.
and the rate at which the predators are eating the prey.
Right. Okay.
At its simplest, I think that's how you could sort of generalize it.
Yeah. Okay. So I need to add a few more assumptions about reproduction for the predators, and yeah.
So again, I don't really know how to map it to that control theory block diagram. I don't know if it is a perfect fit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. I was just kind of trying to apply some sort of controller to.
Yeah, it's got the feedback mechanism here, which is exactly what you want. And so one of the things that confuses me is what the actual sensor is.
Yeah.
Right, because in the simple models that I was using in my demonstrations, it was like, okay, well, in the soda machine, my eyes are the sensor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm visually watching this thing and determining when to pull my cup back so it stops filling up and doesn't overflow. But in this particular case, there's almost no sensor,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't, or maybe there is.
Or the sensor is population count.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more, but that's more just the overall signal, not some actor or mechanic behaving as a. Right. I guess.
Yeah.
Is that one and the same? I don't know. Hey, maybe I'm getting caught up on semantics, but it seems like there's no third party that's sort of observing these things and making adjustments. This is the outcome of the system above. Yeah, that main branch is updated population.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So maybe there is no sensor. It's just that signal comes out and gets fed back in to the summing junction. And then in your controller, then how do the wolves adjust? I guess they just die out if there's not enough food to sustain them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. This is a deceptively complex system. It seems like it's pretty trivial and simple, but I think there's a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna try and figure this out, I think, over the next week.
I'll play with this one a little bit too, because this is something that's all over in the cadCAD like legacy documentation. Yeah. I just never went through the predator prey stuff in particular.
Yeah.
So
it might help to think about your initial conditions and then the variables that control the change, right? So you have initial populations, and then you'll have rate of population growth.
Yeah.
and consumption. Yeah.
Could habitat have impact? Is there a specific habitat for the predator?
He could, but that adds another layer of complexity. Yeah. But
Yeah.
absolutely he could.
Yeah, I think I would love to like make this more complex. I think I just didn't even set it up right to start with, like as you were saying, with like the reproduction rate and initial conditions, some necessary assumptions, parameters before diving into the diagrams. But
yeah, no, I think you got it. I don't think you did anything wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this whole process of like these early steps is to just flesh out the ideas.
Yeah.
Make sure that you understand, all of the actors and mechanics that are in play and the relationships between them, so that you know what to model and what questions you're trying to get answers to.
Yeah.
Or what behaviors you're just simply trying to observe. Maybe you don't have specific questions, but there might be specific behavior that you want to observe over time. But you can't really do that until you start trying to.
Yeah, what did I have for?
Yeah, what is the max population my ecosystem will hold? See, and so that's contingent, probably, right? On some things, because I would say that the max population of your ecosystem is infinite if the predator-prey amounts can be infinite.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it better to, based on this, you said like if you add habitat, if you add migration, if you add, I don't know, for instance, if it's the ocean, you add, I don't know, coral bleaching and
pollution
and pollution and all the other stuff. So is it better to be general and generic, or is it better to be more detailed and then work your way backwards?
Yeah, so this gets back to sort of that point that I've been trying to drive home, but I think that people tend to overcomplicate the models early on. There's several problems that come up with that, but one of those is that you're introducing things that don't actually add valuable insight, and potentially detract or introduce noise into your answers, the answers that you're trying to get out of this model. So when it comes to modeling something, you model the bare minimum that is required to answer the questions that you have, and only that. That way it's easy to sort of make sense of the data, but there's also a limitation around externalities or extra mechanics and policies and actors that change behavior in a way that's not understood. So I think the short answer, at least in all of my discussions, has been start very, very, very simplistic and then add in complexity as you need.
Gotcha. Thank you. This is like kind of interesting. So, in like a net logo, like that sort of modeling like program, they have predator and prey, and like the way that they line things up for like the growth. So like part of the problem that I like foresee is that the prey have nothing to eat. So like it means that the prey will always grow like infinitely. So if the rate of the prey reproduction is greater than the predators will never catch up if the prey initial conditions are like large enough.
You have to make some assumptions there though, right? So prey are going to produce offspring, and you're going to say at each time step, assuming that they have like their some fixed amount of resources that controls the rate at which they reproduce, every time step is going to add X number of new sheep into the ecosystem. But that just sort of needs to be a fixed value, right? Because you're right that we're not modeling is there enough grass. But then if you were to add grass, where do you draw the line? Do you start modeling is there enough water for the grass to grow?
Yeah, you can just keep going. My thought is like maybe it's just like an abstract thing of food supply, and food supply has a reproduction rate, And so like in the net logo case, what they did is they drew randomly on the grid of like a particular fixed size. It's just a smaller model of, let's say, 100 by 100 grid of like places to then put like plants, and then basically the sheep have to like walk their way to the grass. But each time they're just time stepping their way along this grid, maybe in a random walk, searching for food, and then they consume it, and then like that becomes the source of complexity. And so in the long run, I guess the law of averages or whatever, you end up getting enough configurations of food out over a number of runs to get a better sense of like how sustainable the population is. So it's not like dialed into any one particular configuration or clumping of like food resources. But that adds a lot of complexity, because then your sheep at every time step have an XY coordinate as well. I don't know. That's just like one approach I've seen floating around.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's various complexity like versions of the predator prey also available in the cadCAD repo. I think in the demos. There's like even I think there's even an agent based predator prey model, which is like even more complex. So
cool.
Yeah, there's no limit to how complex you let this thing grow.
Yeah, just
but like
you
said, I think where you start defining your boundaries is with those questions that you want answers to, right? And then you grow into the model one step at a time until you feel like the model sufficiently describes all of the necessary components that would answer those questions.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so I'll give this another try. The other thing that I did was like jump directly into cadCAD 1.0, applying the concepts. And I mean, this is just, I didn't even finish, but also definitely wrong. But it was kind of interesting to just try and think of like what the dimensions would be, spaces, blocks, and so I started thinking in that direction, but probably shouldn't look too closely at what I came up with. But I'll try it. I'm curious if this is like jumping all the way to like the conclusion of my learning goal, but just wanted to get a feel for it at first, but maybe I'll have something more for next week. But yeah, cool. So that's what I got.
That's cool. I get a lot of inspo from this.
Yeah, nice. All right. Anyone else have last updates to share? Cool. Then I guess we'll do a similar thing next week, assuming I think we all had like a few next steps or takeaways from the feedback. And Danilo, as I said, will be joining next week too. So he should have he's got a ton of experience. Actually, this is a perfect opportunity for me because he's the one who did the predator prey models for the old cadCAD. So, but yeah, so he'll be around and be able to give some feedback. And yeah, I think let me think real quick. Yeah, I think that's everything then. Any like questions or comments? Does the sign up sheet make sense? Does that work for you guys? Would you be down to like fill in your name for next week, or do you think you'll just kind of play it by ear, show up, jump in if there's time?
I'd be down to sign up again. If there aren't ever people that like haven't had an opportunity to speak, then like I'd like to just give you all an update.
Sweet. Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. Prioritize who first come, first serve. We can try and limit time.
I think updates are super critical too. I just want to stress that like I feel like for a lot of people their aha moments when when they're stuck on something is going to be sort of the iterative work that's done by other people. Seeing how other people approach a problem, and then talking about like, oh, here's the things I'm not really sure about, but then revisiting that a week or two later and saying, here's how I actually ended up solving that. I think that's going to be like critical for a lot. I know it will be for me, so I look forward to regular updates from people too, if they're willing.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see that as well. So then I'll probably repost the sign-up sheet just so it's easy to find in the Discord, but throw your name in there. You guys get first choice because you are in the call. But yeah, then I guess that's all. We can end a little early this week and plan to see you again same time, same place next week. Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
See ya.
Thank you.
Well.